Hello, this is revisiting a video I did years ago doing the character creation for Deadlands Classic. I'm re-putting it up there because I just did an interview recently with Shane Hensley, and I'll be doing a new video soon for creating a character for the Wild West using the Savage World system. And then there'll be a third video regarding doing the comparison between the Deadlands Classic and Deadlands Wild West using the Savage Worlds system. So I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, welcome to another Out of the Basement Gaming Talk. I'm Patrick Leeson, and I'm dressed up, howdy, to continue the Deadlands talk. Although I know my room is not really properly suited for the Deadlands atmosphere, but, you know, I figured I'd wear a little bit, and I have black coffee with some bourbon whiskey to get me in the mood. Cheers. Actually, it's not bad. Bourbon. So, last time we explained the background of the world. It was in the 1870s, the Old West, but with a supernatural kick. Sort of like, again, it was in the TV series Supernatural, or that sort of idea. Basically, there is magic things out there, and you're just trying to survive and stuff like that. So, the characters that we're going to go into first, we're going to like make a character and then sort of, you know, give a little bit of an idea of how the game itself, the gameplay goes, including combat. So first, to make a character, you need a deck of cards. Don't need dice, just deck of cards. So the standard, you know, bicycle deck of cards is all you really need. Keep the jokers in it. You shuffle it up, which are pre-shuffled, and once they're shuffled, you deal yourself out 12 cards. And 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Remember from the earlier video, the cards determine what sort of dice you have, as well as the amount of dice. The suits are the amount of dice you get. So clubs are the lowest with 1 die. Then it goes to diamonds 2, hearts 3, and then spades are 4. Jokers are separate, which we'll get into if I draw a joker. But basically, the joker is the type. So now, what type you get is determined on the face value of the card. So 2 is the lowest. So 2 itself is just a D4. So the odds of you getting a D4 aren't that great. And then I'll explain again what you can do with them in a second. And then the third, let's see, I'm just checking there. 3 to 8 is a D6. And then 9 to Jack is a D8. Queen and King are D10s. Aces are D12s. So we're jokers again. So aces is the best, and then all the way down to a 2. That's the die type you get. So then when you add that with the suit, it determines how many dice of what type you have. So now I'll just go through from the lowest to the highest. I have 2 3s, a 3 of hearts, and a 3 of diamonds. So that would be D6s each. One would be 2D6, one would be 3D6. Then I have some 5s. Again, pair of 5s, 5 of diamonds, and a 5 of spades. So the 5s are the same as the 3s for the die type. So I'll just put them in order of the amount that it'd be. So it'd be the diamonds, and then the hearts, and then the spades for the amount of dice I get. And then, I have a 7 and an 8. And 7 or 8s fall again under the same category as 3s and all that sort of stuff. So 3s to 8s doesn't matter, it just matters what type. So that means I'm only getting 1 D6 though. Whereas opposed to the 8, actually, see this. So the 5 of spades is actually better than the 8 of hearts. So we'll put those back in order there. So, and then after that I have 10 and a couple of jacks. So now remember, 9 to jacks are D8s. So I would have 3 D8s here. So again, that's 3, that's 4. And then finally, I have a king, which would be a D10, which is nice to have, and then a pair of aces. So I lucked out for my guy. I'm just going to make a basic cowpoke. You can do like a bunch once. There's already predetermined ones without the stats, but just basically gives you an idea of the skills and stuff they would have. They do have stats, but you can make your own. Again, and male or female doesn't really matter in this one, which is very open for that. So you can have an Indian brave, sorry, native brave, the kid, the Easterner, tenderfoot, the women investigator, archaeologist, all sorts of stuff. You could have the cowpoke, the gunfighter, and then you get into the mystical ones, which is the shaman, the huckster, and the blessed. So the shaman deals with the spirits, of the native lands. Huckster is the one that deals with the evil Manitou spirits in a game of wit and determination and will to be able to use spells. Remember, Hucksters are the ones that use their cards to play a game, as you will, against the Manitous to try and draw their power out. Blessed are similar to shamans in the fact that their magic comes naturally from the god or gods, as you will.
Hear the devil calling. Hear the devil calling.
So first, this one, I'm just gonna make a standard, straight up. I was gonna think gunfighter, but just a cowpoke, just a guy, regular guy who's just gonna go around. The stats again are: you have cognition, deafness, knowledge, mean, nimbleness, quickness, smarts, spirit, strength, and vigor. And I know it seems a lot, but once you get into it, it actually it works, and they do sort of make sense why they have them split up. So now, cognition, that's to notice things. That's you're listening, you're hearing, all that sort of things. The deafness speaks for itself. That's how you shoot with, is the big one to know, and you throw things with. Knowledge, that's obviously languages, how good your schooling is, and for the mad scientists, again, who are the ones who use sort of the steam ghost punk sort of idea, they need that. That's under them. Then there's the mean, which is the tall telling, leadership overall. Now, tall telling I didn't really talk too much about in the first episode, but tall telling basically is you want to, because there's all these supernatural evil things in the world, there's what they call the fear level. So obviously, the more bad things are out there, the more people are afraid. Your tale telling is a way to reduce the fear. Someone who's got really good mean would get up and do the speaking and telling people, well, this is all good, and whatever story you want to tell to make people feel better about themselves and reduce the fear level. Now, it's only on certain types of creatures that the fear level increases or decreases, but it's still good to have, when you go to towns and stuff like that. So mean is good to have one. It's better if more people have it, but it's definitely important for one of the characters to have. Nimbleness is basically your riding, your dodging as well, and also, if we're riding a stagecoach or driving a stagecoach, as you will, being a teamster sort of thing. Quickness is how many dice you roll to see how many cards you draw to see how many actions you get. We'll get into that and we'll get up to the basic combat things. But the only other one that quickness was important to is the gunslinger for quick draw. Other than that, it's basically just how many dice you roll to determine how many cards you get. After quickness is the smarts. This one's for like bluff, ridicule, scrounging, which is good for everyone to try and find some things, but also the one for gambling for the hucksters, because hucksters would tend to have to be card people. Gambling is obviously an important one that would help them on that. Then you have your spirit. Again, spirit is basically, for most people, is used for helping determine their guts, like how afraid they are or how much they can look into the eye of the devil and spit in his face. For the blessed and for the shamans, what they need here is what they call faith. You need a lot of faith to be able to withstand the evils out there.
Demon,
Yes.
the power of Christ compels you.
Oh, does it?
Then strength, obviously with strength, straight up strength. Vigor is basically your endurance, and that sort of thing for your thing. Pace and size and wind are all determined off of your main stats. So back to my card. So again, 2s are bad, 3s to 8s are the same, 9s to jacks are D8s, queens and kings are D10s, and aces and jokers are D12s. So what I want to do there now, there's 10 stats you may have noticed, if you're paying attention. We had drawn 12 cards. Now what you do is you take your deck, your hand, and you drop the lowest ones. Now again, you might think that, oh, a 2 is not that great because it's a D4. But 4D4 beats 1D6, right? So that's where you gotta start going, oh, well, maybe a 2 isn't so bad after all, because it all depends on the suit. So since I have 7 of clubs, that's obviously one that's going to go away, because that's only 1D6. So after that, the second one I'm going to go would be, obviously, well, it doesn't matter, a 3 or a 5 of diamonds, it doesn't matter, because they're all the same. It is 2D6. So I'm dropping another one that's 2D6. So I am left with my hand now, which would be, okay, so I'm going to be a cowpoke. Now, cowpoke, you figure he's going to need, well, shooting is important, but not as important as everything. So I have 2D12, 1D12, 4D10, 48, 48, 3D8, and then a bunch of D6s, but I have 46, and then 2 stats at 3D6 and 1 stat at 5. That's right, at 2D6. So that's, I know, like when you're going, oh God, that's hard to remember. What's going on? I don't know everything. That's no worries. It's, like I said, it will come once you play it. And as I said, it took us a while to get into it. But like I said, once we got there, it's a lot of fun once you start playing. So I'm just thinking, all right. So cowpoke, I've got a 2D12 and a 1D12, but I've also got 4D10. Now 4D10 is actually probably going to be his best stat, because that's going to give him a lot of rolls on the basic stats. So if I need to make a cognition roll, if I'd roll with it, if I had the king in there, once you write on your character sheet, you don't need the cards anymore. Just keep it in my hand just to go there. So let's say, well, he's a cowpoke. I figure this guy, let's start with the lower stats and then go from there. All right. So 2D6. I'm gonna put that in his knowledge, because he's just your basic cowpoke guy. He ain't got very much reading, arithmetic, and all that sort of stuff. So he don't know. It's not that he's not smart, because there's a smarts one. It's just that he's not too knowledgeable, which makes sense. He's a cowpoke. He grew up in the wild there. So that's the 2D6. Now I have 2 stats that are 3D6. So those are a little bit better. Now, animal wrangling is going to be important for my cowpoke, so that's a mean. Nimbleness, well, that's, driving, fighting, and horse riding. Again, that's important. Yes, is this where you start to see, okay, deafness. Well, you know what? His smarts, I'm going to say he's smart, but not that smart. He's not good at bluffing people or ridiculing people like that. Not too much street life. So he doesn't need it too much. So that's going to be 3D6. And then I have another 3D6. So although I did say guts is very important, I'm going to say this guy doesn't know what's going on. He hasn't seen anything weird. So he's going to just have 3D6 guts, because in his line of work, he, doesn't need it, and he hasn't come across anything that's, tested him. So there we go. So now I have 46. Well, that one's a bit better. That one, let's just see here. Well, you know what? He's not a quick draw guy, so I'm going to give his 46 to quickness. Now we got the D10, D8s. And I have 3D8s, but again, I have 3D8 and 2 stats. That'll be 48. So now we're starting to look, okay, this is getting better now. So, let's say this guy's, now, shooting, he's a cowpoke. He's not going to have too much need of shooting in his mind. So we'll give the 3D8 to his deafness, because although he can use a gun, that's not what his main thing is. He's more, like I said, the cowpoke. So then now I have 2 8s to pass around. Strength, vigor, pretty good. Nimbleness. So what do you say this guy's going to be good at? Well, you know what? I think he's going to be the true animal wrangling horse guy. So he's not going to be the strongest one out there. So we'll give his strength. I mean, 48. Although now this again, the die type itself is not as bad because I've got 4 dice to roll, so that's actually pretty good. And you know what? Let's give him also 4D in 48 in his vigor. You know it's a lower dice type than the last 3. He's got a lot of dice in there, so he'll be pretty good. So now I'm left with just a 4D10, 1D12, and 2D12. So now you have to start thinking, okay, D10 not as good as a D12, but 4 versus 1 is better. So I'm going to say his overall nimbleness, because that, even though that counts as pace, I'm going to take the 1D12 and give it into his cognition. So that's his base for spotting things. So it's not too good, but I'm going to take some of the skills points he has and put it into his cognition just to help him out with that. So now down to mean and nimbleness. So the mean is the animal wrangling, nimbleness is the riding. So you know what? I'll give him the 4D10 in mean. So he's really good at the basics. And the 2D12 for nimbleness, which means he's a fast, agile guy. And again, now I'm going to start adding the points for, so those are done. I don't need them anymore. Grab a shot of bourbon. And black coffee, of course. Now we're looking at our secondary traits. So the secondary traits, again, as I said, are the, we'll start at the bottom. Grit, as you start off with, don't have any. You're at 0. There's certain things you'll get it for, but right now you're 0. Pace, that's your basic nimbleness. Remember, our guy, I gave him the D12s in nimbleness. His pace is 12. Moves pretty fast. Now the basic size, remember, is straight up 6, unless you have a certain edge like my Reverend does, or one of the other people, Patrick Ramsay. His character had a hindrance for obese, so his size was 7 as well, but different reasons. My vigor's die type 12, and my spirit is a 6. I have a 16 wind, and again, the bottom is grit is 0. Now we move on to the next one, which is what the skills. And here they're not called skills; they're called aptitudes. And they go from from 1 to 5. 1 is just beginner, 5 is expert. So once you end up with something like a 6, which has happened with very experienced characters I ran, a 6 is pretty much above, one of them. That's like the Bill Hickoks for the gunfighters, that sort of thing. The Harry Houdinis for the magicians. So 6 is really standing out there. Now you're like, how many points do I go? This is where my knowledge guy, because I'm like, oh, he doesn't need knowledge. I'm going to be hurting for this, because you take your knowledge, smarts, and cognition. So my guy has only got, now this is on the die types, so he's got a 6 for the knowledge, but he's got the 12 for cognition, so that helps. And then the smarts, he has 6. So he ends up with 24, which again is actually pretty good. So he's got 24 points to buy his aptitudes, his skills with. Basically, during character creation, is pretty much straight up 1 for 1. So if you want to have a skill aptitude of 2, it costs you 2 points. To start with, you can't have anything higher than a 5. You can start off as an expert, which is nice in this game, that you can actually start as an expert. You're not complete goobs like in some other games where like, oh, maximum 3 or whatever in a skill because you're not that good. And here, no, you can actually be an expert. But again, since I only have 24 points, that's not huge amounts I can spend. I'll go through this quickly, just real easy. Like I said, animal wrangling, he's going to want to have. I'll give him a 3. He's going to be a tracker, so I'll give him a 3 in that. 2 in the search. Animal wrangling. No, he's not going to have, like I said, he'll have a little bit of tail telling just because, but only 2 dice. Now, dodge, like I said, I don't see him getting too much fighting, too much being shot at. He doesn't expect to, but I will give him the fighting because he's a brawler type, but again, only 2 to start with. Survival, I'll give him a little bit too because, he's out in the wilds. He so he should have some skills in that. Not much. Teamster, we'll give him a couple points in there as well. Horse riding definitely is going to have 3.3 in that. Give him a professional skill of cowboy, because professional skills are basically like that's what you do for a living. We'll give him a couple points in that to show that's his main job, right? He is a cowpoke. I forgot to shooting. I'll put now. Shooting is there's pistol, shotgun, and rifle. There's things you can buy the whole thing with, but we'll just start basics. We'll give him 2 in rifle. Because that makes sense that, that's again, he's a cowpoke. Rifle is what he'd have mostly. Give him shooting 1 in pistol. Just, because he knows how to use it, but he's not very good at it. So most of these skills are pretty much straight up of what you need. They're the skills like same as they do. Animal wrangling, you can, that's it. So I won't go through more of that. But what I will now get into is the one that makes Deadlands that extra kick is the edges and hindrances. Now remember, my guy's not going to be a mage or preacher or anything like that. First is the hindrances. There's a fair amount of different ones, but again, these are basically like other games that have advantages, disadvantages, that sort of thing. So it's basically things like you're all thumbs, you're alien, you like tuberculosis, stuff like that. You have bad ears, bad eyes, bad luck is not a good thing. That seems bad things happen wherever you are. Big britches is not brave. It's taking it to the extreme. You have no concept that you can't succeed at that. And then, big mouth is that's what it is. Now, biggin, that's the one that our friend Patrick had as his mad scientist. He was a big one. He was a very large lad. Now, it did increase his size, but his movement wasn't very fast. So, bloodthirsty, cautious, things like this. So, cautious. Now, the amount that you get is you can start with 10. You can take up to 10 points in hindrances to give either 10 points in edges or spend points in aptitudes. There's one that most of my party took. It's called Veteran of the Weird West, which means you've seen something out there that's weird. Like you've seen some of the supernatural things. That it's an edge, but it costs no points because it's not really. You have an edge because you've seen something and stuff out there exists, but it's not that much fun. It gives you 15 extra points for edges or aptitudes. So you're like, whoa, sweet, 15 free points. No, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch, especially in Deadlands. You draw, with your marshal, because the marshal's the one who's in charge.
I am the law!
With your marshal, you draw a card. That determines the bad stuff that can happen to you. The marshal will let you know what it is. There's, can end up with one arm, ugliest sin, all that sort of things. Now, someone had designed a separate, more expanded Veterans of the Weird West table with like every card bill, clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds all being determined in twos and all that sort of stuff. So it added a lot more flavor, but it could be a lot worse. It's up to you if you want to use the main one, or like I said, just look online for the expanded Veterans of the Weird West. Now, for the cowpoke, I'm not going to take that because, it makes no sense for him. We're going to go back to the hindrances and look at some that make sense for a cowpoke. Now, I went through some quickly there, and basically, I figured this guy is sort of a easygoing guy, but he's he even though he doesn't believe in things that are out there, he likes to take it easy. I took for him cautious, which, obviously don't run into the Rattler's cage. Doubting Thomas, he does not believe in the Weird West. He's like Scully to Mulder. He's illiterate. He never learned how to read and write. Not that he's not smart. Again, he just doesn't. He's not very book smart. So he's illiterate. And I figured the one to round off, because each one of those is 3 points, and you only have 10 points of hindrances to start with. So I'll give him stubborn, because it works with the Doubting Thomas, but it's only going to be worth 1 point because you can only ever have 10 points in hindrances. Now for the edges, again, trying to figure out something for the cowpoke, but if you want to be a blessed, a shaman, a mad scientist, or a huckster, you need the big one that you need to have is arcane background. Now it's worth 5 points, so that's half your points you're getting from hindrances just for that. Now, yes, no one in the party did it, but you could, if you wanted to be a huckster mad scientist, you could use up all your 10 points of edges to take those 2 backgrounds. Not sure why you'd want to, but you could. The cowpoke is normal, so he's not going to be blessed or shaman or a mad scientist or a huckster or anything like that. He's just going to be a straight up cowpoke. So let's look. I went through things that would make sense for a cowpoke to have. Basically, Kimosabe. Kimosabe is ones where you know how to deal with other cultures. Now, it's either a 1 point or 2 point. So if it's similar, not too far off culture, like Irish to English, I'm not going to cause any problems here, but that sort of idea, it's only 1 point. But say for, cowpoke to some native ones, that's 2 point. So I'm giving him the 2.1. He knows how to fit in with some other cultures. Light sleeper. It's funny how in games they give that as an advantage. Me being a light sleeper when most noises will wake me up, they never show you the fact that you lose a lot of sleep that way there. But in the game, it's an advantage, it's an edge, so I gave him light sleeper. Makes sense again for a cowpoke out in the range, being able to hear the coyote, or when the cows start getting ready to do, a stampede. I figured, well, you know what? Nerves of Steel works for him because he's seen rattlers, although he hasn't seen anything supernatural or strange, he does not hold his own, or he stays calm. Then the other one was Sense of Direction. Again, works for the tracker type guy that he is. And the last one I went with was Keen, because you can get things like better vision, better hearing. Keen is sort of the overall one, so it costs more points, but it gives him pluses for his cognition, his tracking, and search and stuff like that. Which, remember, that's what the guy has. He has D12s in that, so I'm going to take that for him. Now, that is only 8 points. I have 2 points left that I could take in edges if I wanted to, but what I decided to do was give him a couple extra points in his attributes, or his aptitudes, sorry. So gave him 1 more point to make it a 4 tracking, so now he's actually an expert tracker. And everyone has their home county in area knowledge as a 2. I give him an extra point because he knows the area pretty well, so he's a 3 in that. And that's it. Now the character is created. We have our traits, our aptitudes, and our edges and hindrances. And then his worst nightmare, we're not going to get into that now, but I figured, something like losing his kin or something like that. That's something you can work out with your marshal. Remember, the marshal's the guy, is the law. And that's it. The basic thing is like it's role playing. It's the same as anything else. You're playing that character in different scenarios. The marshal's going to come up with you. All right, so now we got the character, we got everything, so we're ready to play. So you have your party scenario, the old saloon or something like that. The first thing people do is there's the fate chips. Now these are the chips that it comes with. Now I have it in my nice fancy bag, which works. There's whites are the lowest, so there's 50 of those ones. Then there's the red, which there's 25 of those, and then there's 10 of these that are worth the most. Every time you start a session you're playing, you get 3 chips. You're like, fuck, that's not very many. But that's just to start with. Now, there are edges and stuff like that that can give you more, but you draw those. Now, but the way that Deadlands is cool is you play your character well, you get extra chips. Like, if you're playing your hindrance in something that could actually get you killed, well, that'll get you probably like either a red or in some cases a blue, because you're playing your character in an area that could get your character killed or, you know, make it very awkward for him. And there's other things like if you do certain things right in the adventure, you will also earn, like if you figure out clues and stuff like that, you can get a white chip or a red chip. Very rarely do you get the blue because they're worth a lot. Now that's how you get. So through role playing or figuring things out or going through the adventure, you'll get chips as you go along. This is where a little bit of the disadvantage with Deadlands, because these are turned in for experience, but they also save your ass. Because when you get shot or injured, that does wounds to you. We'll get that in a second. And these you can automatically make sure you don't take the damage. There are also things like you can do rerolls and stuff like that. Like you spend fate chips for doing rerolls and stuff like that. Again, white the lowest, red better, blue the best. And one thing the party learned is if you spend one of these red chips to get a reroll, I, the marshal, get to draw a chip, well, from the bag. But I get to draw. It's all from the same bag. But if you play a red to do a reroll, I get to draw another chip. So that's where sometimes you may not want to spend the red. If you spend it for healing yourself or getting rid of wounds, I don't get a draw. So on wounds, it's no problem. It's only for doing the rerolls that the reds do it. White is just adds. I'm not going to go into all the ones because it's basically that's how things done. You can do some rerolls or adds depending on the chips and stuff like that. I recommend getting the book again because it's a little complicated to go through it all. But once you get used to it, it's a lot of fun. That's what they're used for. You don't actually use them for shooting or anything unless you want to do rerolls and that. Your actions are all determined again through first cards and dice. So remember, my guy has the decent quickness. That's how you determine your initiative, is again through the quickness. So you roll your 4d6, and what number you get determines how many action cards you get. You add the dice together. It's not the highest. You add the dice together. So on the 4d6, if I have a 5, I roll bad, I get 1 card. For every 5 above that, I get an extra card. So if I rolled really well, let's say got a 15, I would earn 3 cards. So aces are the highest, 2s are the lowest. Jokers are wild, and a red joker means you go first above anybody else. A black joker means you get no actions. The deck gets reshuffled. Even though, so you can draw the card. So let's say I only get 1 action. If I draw the ace of spades, I'm still going first. I could end up with some people I've seen guys who roll really well on their quickness with 5 actions, but their highest number was an 8. They got a lot of actions, but didn't go first. In random, it makes initiative even more random. So you could get a lot of actions, but go last, or 1 action, but go first. And there comes the shooting, which is based on the dice you have. So my rifle, I have 2d8 to shoot with. Basic to hit is basically is a 5, is the standard number. Your modifiers can make it higher or lower and stuff like that, but the basic's a 5. Then you can do, the guns do a certain amount of damage, let's say 3d8. Now, you roll a 3d8, it determines, let's say, roll 3d8, you get a 14. You take away the size. So every 6, remember my guy, cowpoke's a 6 size. So for every 6 points of damage, he takes a wound level. So on 14, that'd be 2 wound levels. And on the character sheet, it shows the wound levels because you can be hit in different areas. Arms, legs, chest, vitals, and head. Now, being hit in the vitals does more damage. Being hit in the head does even more damage because if you get shot in the noggin, odds are you're going down. Now, PCs and important NPCs have wound levels. There's, again, 1 wound is a light wound, heavy, medium wound, heavy wound, up until you're pretty much crippled or useless. Enemies, basic enemies, like just the guys in the OK Corral saloon that you're shooting, they just have so many points, period. So once they don't take wounds, but they can't heal up either, and they just go down when you reach the level. Important NPCs, like PCs, can heal with the poker chips. Because yes, the marshal also gets 3 to start with. Everybody does. that's basically the game. That's how, like I said, you just go through it. So the thing to remember is when you get to initiative, you roll dice. That gives you how many cards. That determines how many actions you have and when you go. You want to shoot things or do things, you roll the dice appropriate to the stat. So if I want to ride my horse, that's under nimbleness, and it's my skill in horse riding, which I have 3. That's pretty much it. Again, once you go into it, earning points through your role playing, you earn your chips. At the end of the session, you can turn chips in for bounty to improve your aptitudes, which are easier to do than traits. Traits are like stats. They can go up, but they take a lot to do. And also, you can earn extra hindrances and edges with role playing and the marshal's permission. One of my friends who was running, Ryerson, Bruce at the time, long story. Anyways, Bruce was running the standard Kelpel, but he started drinking a lot because of what he was seeing. So in the end, we decided, you know what? He's got the hankering for alcohol, so he'd always have the flask with him. A lot of it is the role playing. You need to be able to get into the role play and realize your hindrance is there, but it's meant to help you play your character and get you more chips. So that's it.
Hello, thank you for watching the video. There's a bunch more on our site. Please check them out and give a like and subscribe if you can, and really appreciate that. Out of the Basement will be live streaming again the Canadian Tabletop Championships May 24 to 26 in 2024 in Ottawa from the Rito Carleton Club. Out of the Basement will also be live streaming a special event. A video will be coming out about that, where we will be having dice that have been made for us by Baron of Dice. If you wonder who Baron of Dice is,